wanted to like introduce myself formally. So, as Angie said, I'm an author. But that's something that I recently this year I published my second book.
Oh, second.
Yes. It's called Choosing to Live Royal: A West Baltimore Story. And it's a prequel to my first book, Restoring Broken Wings, A Redemption Story, which came out in 2016. So this book is about my life growing up in West Baltimore. I'm a native of West Baltimore. I grew up in the Catholic school system here, which is kind of sort of what saved my life. I was raised in the Lexington Terrace community. And I'm a graduate of Morgan State University and Howard University with bachelor's and master's degrees in social work. And I always have loved helping the community. So, in dedicating my life to giving back to the places that I grew up in. And so, it just came naturally for me to start writing. I've been writing since I was a little girl. It was always something that was therapeutic for me. And so, as I have gotten older and I've learned more about the things that young people in our community face, especially regarding childhood trauma, that's what really encouraged me to write my story. So
I love writing, so I can't wait to read the second book. The first and the second, because I didn't know this was just second one. So I do agree that it is very therapeutic to write. And actually, I was just talking to my coworkers today because I was just talking about all the things I do. And I was like, I need to write a book. And I said, hopefully my guests will encourage me to just continue. Can you just talk about, because I know for me it's hard to actually sit still. Do it. Like, you have to really dedicate time and, can you just encourage me? But just let people know, like, what are some ways to even start the process?
Well, to me, I think that writing every day can be therapeutic just when you get home from work or get home from school or wherever it is that you go, and having a journal or something pretty that you go to and just sitting down on your bed, maybe with some tea or some water or something like that, and just writing, writing what's inside of your heart. And for me, my writing more is like not a choice. It's like before I go to sleep at night, I have to write. Okay. So that I can rest. It's like, and that's where my two books really came from. It was like, because like people always ask me when I'm going to write another one, but it's like giving birth. It's kind of like being pregnant with, a whole bunch of content that you just have to release from yourself. And a lot of it for me was, it's just writing about the grief of my old self. And it helps you shed who you once were. And that's how you keep growing, is by, sometimes you can't let things, you just write until you heal. You just keep writing. You just write. And so, that's what I do. When I'm sad, I write. If I'm happy, I write. If I'm feeling introspective, I write. If I feel confused, I write. So it's really the way that I process things. Writing is what saves me.
So Jessica, everyone wants to know people's why whenever they get into a big project, whatever their goal is. So my question to you is, what is your why behind your most recent 2 books?
Well, my why is like I was just describing. It was like these 2 things I had to write. It wasn't even necessarily like I wanted to. It was kind of like I had to. It was like my first book was about like my divorce, and as the situation was unfolding, I would just sit home and I would just write, and then I said one day this is going to really help somebody, and so more so is because when you think about when you go through things, you don't always go through them for yourself. Sometimes you go through them for other people, and that's kind of sort of how these 2 projects were birthed. So that's kind of, what my why has been in that regard as far as the first book. Now, this second book, Choosing to Live Royal: A West Baltimore Story, this was the book I was always destined to write. So I remember when I was 21, my best friend asked me when I was going to write a book because of
Right,
what
speak
she
it.
knew about me, because of what she knew about my life,
Right.
of what my experience was. And I said, I don't have enough to write yet. I still have to live some more. You know, the story has to be finished. You know, it has to be a finish on it. And so that's where this came from. It was like, okay, I had a milestone birthday. And that milestone birthday and that wisdom that you get when you find in yourself when you're reaching these milestones, when you search yourself,
Yeah, I know.
is where that content came from. And
Yes.
it was because it was just from seeing girls, and I was like, now it's time. It's time for me to write this. It's time for me. Like I said, I like to write, and so this was one of the reasons why one of the things that I wrote at the beginning of this year. I'm no longer grieving for my old self. She was amazing, and it's through her sacrifice that I can truly live. And so that was this book. It was like
You gonna have me write a
writing
book.
about my old self.
Wow.
Right.
Yeah, it was that's
That's
what
a
this
statement
was
that you have to make and then pause so it can marinate to
Yeah.
everyone. Wow.
Yeah, so that's what this process has been about.
I sat there. Actually, I probably have a book already because I have journals and journals and journals. Probably like 15 years back, when my husband was in the hospital, I used to write. And like I said, you're just encouraging me that sometimes it's just pulling that out, and it's just a puzzle, you know, pulling it out and now bringing it back into play. And I know even with this Saturday coming up, where we're doing something at the SNS Lounge, when they interviewed me, when I tell you it sparked something, because the questions, I elaborated. When I say I elaborated to the point where I was like, I can't send my answers right now because
it's too much. I gotta chop it down.
Because I gotta chop it, and so yeah, I had to chop it, and that's when I knew it's time.
It's time.
It's time.
Yeah. So you had a moment where you're just like, this is it. Like, it's time to publish this one.
It was like, it's time to write it. So, like I said, my milestone birthday year was last year, and I was like, it's time for me to finally tell the story. And so I wrote an outline, and I wrote what I knew, what I wanted the concept to be. But it was like, I didn't have the content right then and there.
Right.
So I was praying for the content, and then one night I was supposed to be going to sleep. And you know how God works. It's
And
not
wake up in the middle.
to.
Yes.
And I was, the content came at 1 o'clock in the morning. And I
That's
was
what I
up
said,
from
wake
1
up.
a.m. to 6 a.m. Just,
Yep.
and I was like, who is this? What is,
Wow.
it, was like, it wasn't me. It wasn't my hands. It was
Uh-huh.
like, and then I went to sleep for an hour and went to work.
So how much of your book was done during that
It
time?
was the whole thing. Was
Your
done during
whole
that
book
time.
was done during that time.
Yeah. Well, just
Wow.
the content, not
content.
the editing and all of that kind of stuff, but just the content. It's like you gotta wait until the right time. God sends you the content
yes.
at the right time, and you have to move when He sends the content.
Absolutely.
So
So
that's,
you talked about your best friend, and oftentimes, you know, there are people that see the great potential in us, or you have someone in your corner that's that cheerleader. Who was that person in your life?
I've had a lot of different cheerleaders in my life, and that's kind of sort of another part of what the reason why I wrote this story is because it's about how I was able to create a non-traditional path to success because of those people who were my cheerleaders in life. And it also relates back to the purpose of this show, which is restoring the village.
Restoring the
Doing my-
Restoring the village.
it's restoring the village.
Restoring
And
it.
It's like that village is what allowed me to be able to become a person who was able to get a lot of things accomplished despite coming from the background that I came from, and more importantly, living through the experiences that I had with trauma. So I had a lot of different people in my corner from, I can see far back to 3rd grade. I can see like God sending people light in my path from when I was like 8, 9 years old. Until now, I'm a grown woman. And it's like, it's been a village that whole time. So I think that I've had more people who've encouraged me than people who've discouraged me.
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
So I'm over here writing to add to my content. Listen, I just love. Let me just say, the first thing you said has really helped me out, and it was writing about the grief of your old self, and I hope I just said that correctly. Mm-hmm. Okay. Even if I didn't say it right, like literally, I understand it, and sometimes it's more so writing about that. Because a new person has been birthed, and when you can look at the past, when you can look at and I don't want to say your old ways, but your old things that have happened in your life, and you just mentioned it, like you can name the people in your life that encouraged you, that pushed you. Like there are things that I can think of and just say, so and so, when I was in elementary school, like. Certain things are there for a purpose, so that was just so encouraging, and it's going to help me and it's going to help others to know let me just tell you, when you said your best friend spoke to you, I remember, and I always say it over and over, and I say it and I haven't even written it yet, so I'm being hard-headed, but years ago, Apostle Karen Bethia at Set the Captives Free spoke over my life and said, you will write a book.
Amen.
I'm overdue. When
You
you say 9 months, why am I still, carrying this baby? Like, it's so much. So, very encouraging to anyone that want to write a book, to do anything,